glad to have you guys here. One thing we did last time that the people didn't get to hear, that we also just haven't really done in a while, is a Clubhouse.
What's the password? New England clam chowder. Is that the red or the white? I can never remember that. White?
Which we like to do for all of our first time guests. So you're going to be our first second time guest, but first time Clubhouse members. So I'm excited to get into this. This is, and I've missed it. It's been, I don't know the last time we did it. So this is going to be super fun.
It's been a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's going to be good. So I'll kick it off with mine. Mine is, in the theme of the Daniels almost here, but you're on a deserted island and you get to take the filmography of one person with you, either a actor or a director. You've got provisions, you got a TV, you got all that stuff, but you get some sort of entertainment to take with you. I'm curious, who would that be and why? I'll throw it to Darren first or whoever.
Oh man, I'm gonna throw that to Mike first.
Throw it to Mike first. I'll edit that up so it looks like I said it to Mike.
Yeah, I remember who I said last time we recorded, and I don't think it's changed. So pound for pound, I feel like someone like Steven Spielberg's probably the best answer because it's just such a big breadth of work. And I know a bunch of people have said Spielberg before for this question, but I gotta go with Freddie Wong, the YouTube sensation action filmmaking star.
Nice.
That is one of the key seminal figures that got me not only into action filmmaking, but just filmmaking in general. And seeing all of the different special effects he could do is what really drew me in and wanted to know how you do those things behind the scenes, how you use After Effects, how you green screen, how all the keys work. But then after that, it's all of the fundamentals and the storytelling that really hooked me into the whole storytelling film cinematic world. And then from there, getting into his podcast, actually something called Story Break, which actually to me has a really big connection with the film that we're going to talk about, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which maybe Everything Everywhere is a better, more concise way to say that. But the man's just such a big role model for me. Actually, one of the only Asian American role models as well that I had growing up. And I did not realize that until I got a lot older, but just a huge cult personality. And he's still active as well, still making things. So
that's awesome.
It's got everything you could possibly want.
Yeah. That's so cool. I think you talked about, was it the video game high school? Was that the...
Yeah, video game high school, dude. So that is one of the first big flagship series that they did with their channel. They called it Rocket Jump. I think the reason why they switched from Freddie W channel to an LLC called Rocket Jump is so that way they could use all the funding and all the official business economics that was needed to make such a big series. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's about a high school for professional gamers, and it is so witty. If anyone knows Diablo Cody, who did Jennifer's Body and did Juno, imagine that style and just density of wit in the dialogue, but then filtered through, this is for video game nerds. And that is the entire show. It is fantastic. It is way more than the sum of its parts. And then we interviewed Eric Linden on the show, who was the stunt and action coordinator.
Shout out to Eric.
A lot of that show. So
that's
flipping cars over, doing all kinds of crazy stuff for a lowish budget series.
That's awesome.
One of the biggest parts of my childhood for sure.
Awesome.
That is so cool. Yeah, I think that like plays in well, especially to Everything Everywhere. Just hearing how the Daniels made this, all the VFX and stuff like that. But we will have plenty of time to get into that. So, Darren, do you have an answer?
Yes. Keeping with the theme of last podcast, I would have to go with Edgar Wright, probably.
Cool.
Just because there's so much to unpack in those films, and I feel like still to this day, there's still things that I haven't caught onto
for
yet.
Sure.
Yeah, just like little transitions, little effects, little details here and there. If I was on a deserted island, I would love to just slow that down and just watch every little piece and then be able to dissect that. So, Edgar Wright.
I feel like his stuff, you could definitely go frame by frame, especially, we talked about it a lot on here, but like Baby Driver, like when he goes to get the coffee and like the lyrics are like graffitied on the wall and stuff like that. As he's walking, like it's just like everything he does like is so cool. That's a great choice.
Especially from an like editing perspective. I've been like just breaking down films and watching them at like 0.25 speed and just watching small transitions and just trying to see where keyframes lined up and how like they move and pretty much where like the editor decided to cut off certain effects or where they decided to like put in effects. And you really like learn a lot by just, slowing things down a lot.
Well, I think that just like solidifies even more that you guys were the perfect guest for this, because I feel like
Totally.
a mix of both of those answers is everything everywhere. You know, it's like it's the amazing editing, but it's like the almost DIY action and effect. So awesome answers. That's solid.
Darren, did you see Last Night in Soho?
I didn't yet, and that's why I might pick his filmography as well, because I've heard really, really good things about it.
I'd be interested to hear your opinion, because we reviewed it like a few months ago, Ben?
Matt?
And
it was like his first time doing horror, right?
And it got mixed reviews from us and our guests. One of our guests absolutely just hated it so much.
Oh, no way.
It was awesome. It's always nice when you get a little bit of controversy on the pod.
Yeah. I heard Chris Stuckman really liked it. Just a very original idea. So I trust his opinion. I don't know how I will feel about it personally, but I would love to watch it and exchange thoughts.
Yeah, it'd be cool to hear that. It's like, I mean, we've talked about it before, but just like there are some directors where even like their lower stuff is still great. It's not that it's like bad or anything. It's just like something's got to be towards the bottom, that kind of a thing. And I enjoyed it. But one of our guests did not like it at all. We do that elevator pitch segment. Her response is like, why would I tell someone to watch this? Damn. All right, that's totally fair. We've never had anyone say that before. Back on the pod. Wow. That's pretty funny. It's like, why would I tell somebody? Like, that's all right.
She needed one floor of that elevator ride. That's it. Done.
So get me off this elevator.
Do you remember like, do you have like a specific movie where someone absolutely hated it like the most? Or was that like the one?
I mean, that was, I think, me last week when we talked about Interstellar. And then,
all right.
I guess, but that was our whole theme this last round. Before this we called it second chance cinema, which is like movies that like we individually didn't love, that it feels like the general consensus is it's a great movie. And that's me in Interstellar. It's like, it's just like not for me. But I think most of our guests have been rather positive. The one for Joker, actually, he was the only one that was a huge fan of it. And then there's the three of us who were just like not fighting, but just like, just explain to me. I don't get what I'm missing here. So I don't know. I think it's I would have a little bit controversy.
Really. It was a fun round too, because we always explore stuff that we like, and the three of us are genuinely, for the most part, we're mostly like, yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was great. I agree. Good call.
Or it was okay.
Thumbs up.
So for this time, it was pretty cool to have, differing opinions. I don't remember what your answer was to this last time. So now I'm doubly excited to hear the answer to my question. Because I just want to know, what movie would you rewatch again for the first time? It's funny talking about this movie with this question in mind, because I could see this being an answer, this movie, Everything Everywhere, being an answer for this question. And if it is, that's totally fine. But if you could go back and, have your memory erased and re-experience a movie again for the first time, what would you choose? And we'll start with Mike, I guess.
Does that mean I get to Uno reverse it and send it to Darren? I can go first.
You got your reverse card.
That's opinion power. You both get one reverse card.
I feel like a movie like this, actually, you might be wasting that experience if you could do that. Because I feel like there's so much going on that every time sort of feels like a first time. Same thing with Face Off. There's so many crazy moments in that movie that every time, even if you get it spoiled to you, you can't get that movie spoiled. There's no way to anticipate
Nicolas Cage, like
craziness.
John Travolta.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think this is probably the answer I gave before, but Spike Jonze's Her with Joaquin Phoenix.
I think you did.
Scarlett Johansson. I'm pretty sure. I always just name that movie for something. That is probably my number one movie.
That was a good one.
If not number one, it's always top 5 for me. I love it so much. And it's one of the first films that I saw that I seeked out for myself, because I thought I would really like it when I was first really getting into film in a more serious, more critical way. And because I loved it so much when I was first getting into film, I think I'd sort of gotten so familiar with it that I missed a lot of the nuances of it. And so every time I watch it and I would take something new, I kind of say to myself, how did I miss this? How did I not put 2 and 2 together from a cinematic perspective, something about the story and characters and the major themes of it? So I'd be really curious to just wipe all that and then see it with a fresh set of eyes, but with all the new context that I have now from having done some writing and some actual filmmaking. But absolutely everything about it, the style. I'm a sucker for romance, and maybe we'll get into some Wong Kar-wai comparisons for some of the sequences and everything everywhere later on. But that is probably mine.
That's a great choice. I love that movie, like especially specifically like the set and costume design, because they make Los Angeles look so futuristic yet so relatable. Like the fashion, the fashion that the characters wear seems like almost retro, but futuristic at the same time. And then just the setting we see in LA, like obviously the technology almost seems quaint now. The fact they're like they have their like Siri essentially talking to them all the time with their earbuds in or whatever. Like that all seems like, I guess not quaint, but relatable and accessible now. But they still create this world that's like recognizable yet foreign at the same time. It's really cool. I love that movie as well. I haven't seen it in a long time, but it's a fantastic pick. Darren, where would you go here?
Yeah. Damn, the only thing in my mind right now is Everything Everywhere. So yeah. That's a movie that I will have to say I would want to rewatch again. I think I even told Mike this because we went to go see it together. And yeah, the first thing I said was, man, I wish I could wipe my memory and rewatch this again.
Seriously.
Yeah, because it was just so crazy and it was a great experience. I went to go see it twice. The second time, like I kind of knew certain things would happen. So yeah, just being able to rewatch that again for the first time, that would be great.
I think that's a great choice. Like we've answered these before, but if we do it again, that might become my answer because I had such a good time with this movie.
It was amazing.
It'd be fun.
Yeah.
Take it in again for the first time.
I think that's the first time someone's answered this question with a new release, something that's like still actively being talked about and seen in theaters. So that's fun. Right. I like that. That's cool.
And or that's the topic of the episode. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's awesome.
We on our pod we've coined the term Unsung Gems, which is the movies that you personally love, that you feel is grossly underappreciated by everyone you know personally and also just by the masses in general. You just feel like, how does more people not love this movie that I love? So I would like to know what your guys' unsung gem is. I'd like you guys to answer simultaneously if possible. We'll throw it to Darren.
Alternate every other word.
Oh my God. Simultaneously.
Wow. Everything Everywhere. Oh, man. And it's all at once.
Yeah.
So there we go. Yeah. Exactly. You guys got it.
Shouts to Speed Racer. I know y'all already picked that in the past, but got to give that one a shout out. I think, again, this is the same one I picked as before. So trying to keep it consistent, I guess, 3 for 3. Kevin Smith's Tusk is fantastic. Right. I think that it blends genres in a way that almost evokes something of Korean cinema. Of course, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite is one that probably most people are familiar with in that regard. Also Oldboy. But it's such a great blend of visceral body horror with this weird off-putting element of Black comedy that is very, very comedy. Like a lot of times dark comedy is so horrific that you don't realize there's funny elements to it. This movie is hilarious at times in a very Kevin Smith way. It's also so funny to me when you see filmmakers very clearly putting themselves as the protagonist, like they don't know anything else. So of course Kevin Smith, Smodcast podcast godfather, is going to make his main character some sort of podcast star. And it's crazy. It's about a dude being turned into a walrus against his will, and the screams that Justin Long has in that film are oddly particularly haunting for me. It is horrifying. And then there's this little acting choice that he does when he gets turned into a walrus after he gets surgically turned into some kind of monster, is he just does a little sneeze every once in a while. Like his body has gone through so much, and now that he is a human walrus in a walrus zoo, he caught a cold, like as if everything else was not bad enough. He got a little cold. That was such a little human touch that I really loved. And then the story as well, the themes and everything was really well paced, really came together. A lot of people hate on, there's actually Johnny Depp in a crazy role with a weird inspector of a turn that this movie takes, and maybe the midpoint of it. And people are saying, oh, it doesn't fit the movie. I think it fits the movie perfectly. It is so wacky in its premise that to not put some sort of weird Inspector Clouseau character would almost seem criminal. And he is great in this role.
Oh man, that's a great pick. And I remember saying this last time, but obviously no one knows this. I had that recommended to me like 5 years ago by a friend of mine. I still haven't seen it, but I remember looking into it and being like, I cannot believe this movie exists. That this, like, I'm reading it. Basically, I mean, you surmised it a lot better than I read about it, but it sounds insane. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, we gotta check it out.
There are always those movies where at the table when you're doing that read, you kind of can't believe that this is a real movie. Like when you're reading it out loud and you're telling someone about it, it's like, no way, that's not going to work. But when you see it on screen, it's like the execution is just amazing.
And what's crazy about that one too is oftentimes I feel like for movies like that, you're thinking, where the hell did this idea come from? What were they thinking?
Yeah.
The idea that to make this movie happened when they were live on air in front of mics for a podcast. So you can actually hear the exact moment when they have the idea of, here's a crazy news article. Let's make this into a crazy story.
To take on position as my lodger, you must be prepared to wear the walrus suit for approximately 2 hours each day. Whilst in the walrus costume, you must be a walrus. Number one, anyone listening to this, copyright Kevin Scott, because this is a fucking horror movie. This seems like a cuddlier version of Human Centipede.
And you hear all the pieces coming together, the theme, the outline, the basic act structure.
That's cool.
And then it goes all the way through to full production. And then, dude gets turned into a walrus. And that's really all I want in the movie.
By the way, Justin Long is not in enough. He's not in enough movies.
Yeah,
I love
big Justin Long fan.
Yeah. What's the rom-com I do with Drew? Is it Going the Distance? Something like that? It's underrated. It's a good Justin Long rom-com.
I feel like we had this conversation.
We may have.
This feels like deja vu to me right now.
Yeah, this is the second time we've had this conversation.
We definitely talked about Justin Long at some point.
It's the first time anybody's listening to this, but Tusk is a hole in my Kevin Smith. That and Red State. I haven't seen those yet.
Same.
But Tyler and I recently got to go on another pod. We talked about Clerks, and it was fun to kind of revisit it and see where he came from, and then just the idea of like where he's gone to and stuff like that. So it's pretty impressive. I think he's like the ultimate Sundance success story, kind of darling. Just like, I'll put all this on a credit card and we'll see what happens. And here he is.
Roll those dice, baby.
Human walrus movies, What are you gonna do? Sweet. Yeah. Darren, did you have an unsung gem or were you?
Yes. So in light of this episode, I will say Swiss Army Man.
Hell yeah.
The Daniels' first film. Just because I saw it because of Chris Stuckman. And then when I was watching it, I was like, this is so ridiculous. Because if you guys don't know the premise of it, it's Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano. And Daniel Radcliffe is like he's basically a Swiss Army man. He's like a guy who has all these features in his body that can do multiple things. For instance, his dick kind of points in the direction that they need to go. So it's basically a compass. His mouth like squirts water and his hands can like chop wood. So it's kind of crazy, and
his farts kind of propel them like a jet ski, like he's just got
the first scene of the movie, you'll realize it's so crazy because Paul Dano actually rides Daniel Radcliffe after he sees Daniel Radcliffe like farting on the beach, and then he basically rides him off the island on his back, and it's just absolutely insane. But yeah, it just shows you because the Daniels just have like this crazy sort of imagination, and I feel like they do have this sort of fascination with body parts and like how they move, and I feel like you can see that a little bit in Everything Everywhere. So this movie was really just all of that in one movie.
That's awesome.
And I was surprised that more people didn't know about this one, especially with Daniel Radcliffe being in it. Just like a big star that took on a very indie type film. I feel like,
this is an unsung gem that like I haven't seen it yet, but I've just heard about it so much, and it's like even the name sounds interesting. Like you hear the name like Swiss Army Man, like you kind of
right,
like the name itself is just intriguing, and then seeing who's in it. So it's an interesting unsung gem because it's like sort of the opposite of the movie that you don't hear about that other people should hear about. For me, it's one that I've heard about that I really need to see. So it's like maybe for me, it's like
definitely go see it.
It's a sung gem. It's not quite unsung. People are singing the song. I just don't know all the lyrics yet. You know?
Yeah. How many of you guys have seen it so far?
I saw it once I realized it was them. Like,
oh really?
I've had it like in my library for a couple years now. Yeah. And then after seeing Everything Everywhere, it's like, what else have these guys done? And there's like, wait, that was them, you know? Because it was the premise of like, so a guy's stranded with a dead body on an island. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I want to get into it.
I've seen Weekend at Bernie's. I don't.
I've been there. I don't need Castaway.
It's literally
Weekend
only
at Bernie's,
two actors,
you know?
the whole film.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, like what they can do with just those two actors.
So good.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ben. I'd heard about it. I was interested in seeing it, but it was kind of one that's like, oh, maybe I'll get to it, maybe I won't. But now, like you said, Ben, knowing who they are, who the directors are, who made it, like, oh shit, that's gonna move up a little bit farther up my watch list.
Seriously. Yeah. And I mean, I won't go into too much on like the themes they hit on and everything, but I did not expect to cry at the movie about the farting dead corpse, you know?
They are surprising. They have surprisingly like emotional plot points for such like a absurd idea.
It's
exactly what Everything Everywhere is.
It almost seems like their whole thing is like, what's the silliest thing we can make a movie about and make it awesome?
And I even heard that whole beginning sequence where he's on Daniel Radcliffe's body and like floating away. Like that's what started the movie. That whole idea of like someone sitting on someone's body and like floating across the water, almost like a motorboat. That was just the idea that started it all. And then they made that whole entire film based off that. It's crazy.
Kudos to Daniel Radcliffe.
Seriously.
Yeah. There's another sign for that. Whatever he can to get away from Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly. He would even play a farting corpse. Tied down forever as Harry Potter.
And
honestly, made all the money in the world. Like, what does he care? He could just do whatever fun thing he wants.
He wants to do whatever he wants. Yeah, exactly.
I say, if we ever get to a Daniel Radcliffe Rushmore, that movie is 100% making it on there. Like his performance is so good in that movie. It's
so good. They made a full-size dummy of his body for that movie. Like they molded his face and like his whole entire body and like just a full-size dummy. So they could like launch it into trees and like do whatever they wanted with that. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's right.
Well, that's a great choice. I hope, we'll eventually get around to it on our pod as well, because I think it's definitely worth a watch. But thank you guys for answering it the second time. Now we have official record that you guys have answered these.
Now it's on
the vault.
Now we know.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Clubhouse. I'm glad you guys are here.